You and I have grown up in different generations, and many things that weren't acceptable when you were growing up are more than acceptable now, and that's kind of what we're going to be talking about. And so if you could introduce yourself.
My name is Sharon Adkins. I was born in Fort Dodge, Iowa, October 23rd, 1944.
What are some of the specific things that were expected of you?
Well, you were to behave in church. You couldn't run around in church. You know, you had to be the proper lady.
So were there things that you wanted to do?
There were a lot of things I couldn't do. You did not wear makeup. So that was kind of hard. And we didn't wear shorts. Didn't wear any kind of thing, a top that was revealing. You know?
Is that everybody, or is that just your kids?
That was what everybody within the church. But not everybody did. We would have never went to this play. Even though when I was a junior and senior, I was in a play both years. But I don't ever remember my parents going to see it. We didn't go like to festivals. We didn't go to rodeos or carnivals or any of that type of stuff. It was all thought to be of things of this world. Because within the church you need to come, we're taught that you need to come be separate from the world and not do the things of the world. So that's the way it was at them times. In those back there in the 50s and early 60s, ministers did not have television. It was basically considered a sin to have a television.
So other kids could watch TV, but you couldn't.
Right. They had televisions in their house, and I remember going to a friend's house, and I watched television.
You liked watching it?
Lawrence Welk was on. Some of those other guys, all it was about singing and dancing. And because dancing was wrong, secular music was wrong, I didn't really particularly like it. I would have wished some of the other type of programs, you know, Gunsmoke and some of those Westerns I would have probably enjoyed greatly, you know? Or just even watching cartoons when you haven't even grown up with a cartoon. I went to summer camp. Those days, the girls did their own swimming and the boys did their own swimming. We did not swim together.
Because of the bathing suit?
Too much revealing. We did not eat in restaurants.
No restaurants?
Well, we could eat in a restaurant, but none of it had sold alcohol of any kind. This is what the reasonings were. If anybody seen you go in that restaurant, they might say you're drinking, and they don't know for sure, you know? And so if you don't go in those restaurants, nobody could ever accuse you of drinking.
So as a pastor's family?
You did not eat in those kind of restaurants.
Okay.
We did not do any kind of gambling. You know, we didn't play with cards, especially a deck of cards where you could do any type of gambling with. Because we didn't even use dice. We had spinners. We couldn't even use dice. And sports was a thing too that we weren't able to do. We didn't participate we didn't go see games. I never went to a baseball game or a football game.
Because?
Sports was just considered basically wrong.
Because it was part of the world?
I think so.
So a lot of the things that you weren't able to do when you were little, do now.
Right.
What are some of those things that you do now?
You've gone to sports games. I've gone to sports. I've gone to some movies. You know, but I'm very selective. I do eat in restaurants that have the alcohol. I've gone to rodeos, you know, and most of the stuff I did. I choose not to have a television because of the stuff that's on it, too much stuff on it, you know. So
that stayed the same?
That stayed the same. I try not to wear revealing clothes.
So what made you change your mind? Because as a kid, that stuff was wrong, and then as you've grown up, there must have been some reason that you decided it wasn't wrong anymore.
Well, I couldn't after being home. I kind of rebelled. All this stuff, all these years I've been told I couldn't do, I was going to go do. You know?
So it was.
And so I did these things. You know, for a lot of years. And then I didn't always live for God either, you know. And so when he called me back to him, as I watched television and some of these things, God started speaking to me, you know. CSI. It's one of those I really liked, you know. There's a lot of others. But God started speaking to me. As a Christian, I didn't need to see all those sexual sins, and that's what they become. A lot of these programs, they're cop programs, but they're just showing one kind of depravity, is that the word you want to say, and sexual sins, things like that, you know. In television, I have given up.
But morally, baseball games you don't think were in our
No, as long as it
World
doesn't
anymore.
become a god. Anything can become an idol very easy. If that's all you do, is to hit these sports and you don't have time for God, you know? So if it's in its place, you know, it's all right, you know?
So all of the things that you couldn't do because they were considered worldly are okay as long as it's put in the right place.
Right, and you're still putting God first. Yeah. I was going to look it up, but I forgot in the Bible where Paul says, you know, about freedoms. I have all these freedoms, but everything's not the thing I should do, you know? That he has set us free. We have freedom in him. We're not under the law anymore that says do this, do this, do this. But it still doesn't mean everything is right. You have to decide, you know, for yourself. What does it honor God? I do this. If I feel it doesn't honor God, then I won't do it. If I felt with God would deal with me about makeup, nail polish, and all that stuff, then I would do away with it, you know?
The Bible's definition of sin is to know what is wrong and still do it.
Right.
And so I think for everybody individual, what God works on, like you just said, if God told you not to wear makeup, you wouldn't wear it. And if you did wear it, then that would be a sin.
Right.
But for somebody else that he hasn't told.
Right, that it's not a sin. Right.
Like I said earlier, it's really different for me. I'm not a pastor's kid, but I'm pretty close.
Right.
And TV is very, very well known for my generation. Kids watch TV all the time. Shorts, girls can wear shorts and skirts, and there's, up to a point it's inappropriate, but for the most part they can wear that and it's not considered a bad thing. Makeup is very common. Movies are very common. Sports games. And all kinds of events. So just about everything that you couldn't do is common for kids my age to do. There's still some things dressing modestly is to a different degree now.
Right, you might not be quite as modest as I used to have to be.
Right. Modest now has a different meaning. But how do you think, do you have any idea why that's changed? Because for me, I would say that I'm a really good kid and I'm not perfect, but kind of have the same pressures and responsibilities, but yet I'm doing a lot of the things that you weren't allowed to do. So how do you think that kind of has changed and how that compares?
No, I think it's changed because God has revealed more things in the scriptures to people. My sister and I have talked a lot about the things we've learned now that we didn't know growing up in church, you know? That it's just God, and as we get closer to the end times, he is revealing more and more of his scriptures to us, you know? And that salvation is not about these things we don't do, you know? Salvation is how we act, how, you know, that we're showing love, you know? You know, that we live what we believe, and it's not about makeup or going to these places. You know? But I choose not to go to some of these places because I don't feel they're doing me any good. But I wouldn't come out and say, no, you can't do this stuff, like it's wrong with, you know?
So, for kids now, how do you think the difference in morals and the things that you can and can't do has affected the kids?
I think it's harder, you know, morally.
For kids now?
For kids nowadays. The peer pressure they have at school, you know. I had peer pressure, you know. They made fun of me, you know. And call me holy roller and all this stuff. But it's a different type of peer pressure, you know.
You were expected to not do the things, and kids now are expected to do them.
And I just think the kids are not taught to be polite. They're not taught respect, you know. And because they're allowed to watch television, that there's a lot of families, and I'm not saying Christian families, but there's Christian families too, you know, that they let the TV run and their kids watch everything until they, morally, their outlook is different. You know? And it's sad because they're growing up to be that next generation that's moving further from God. Yeah?
Obviously, from your generation to mine, there's been a lot of changes.
There's been a lot of change.
A lot of changes. Do you think it's going to continue?
Let the families keep themselves holy. Just like your family, you know, because the experience you and your sisters, you know, your sister has had in God. Now you're going to go into your next generation because of your relationship with God. You will teach your kids the same way.